Pinkertons Ghosts is a horror anthology podcast by Superversive Radio, with no affiliation with any detective agency, person, real or imagined, or the dark forces of Outre-Terre. It is not intended for children.
Jack Morrow here. I couldn't resist. I couldn't do it. I couldn't stop and force myself to remember that demons lie. I've paid for it. I've paid so much for it. I couldn't resist the lie. I'm weak in spirit. I returned to Missouri, the Ozarks, to the border of Arkansas, where Grigory Horvath and his kin roamed. They were waiting for me. The police were no problem to dodge. They were barely looking for me now that the news media had started to lag. At least, being a ghost was good for something. Let the journos repeat empty words to soul-devoured machines for all I cared. I was going to make Grigory pay. I abandoned the Unismasher somewhere safe. I entered the former Paranormal Pinkertons territory on foot. I was loaded to bear. The 1887, the 1911, knives, grenades, flashbangs, and a Tommy gun. I didn't plan on retreating. Either I would get my hands on Grigory, or I would die in the attempt. My invasion went smoothly. Of course it would. No one can guard 100 square miles of hilly, forested land. They can try. I saw the stations, men at certain roads, laser tripwires, trail cameras, and even simple pit traps. Of course, even when they had raided the remaining old Pinkerton caches, God bless every paranoid control's heart, there were gaps. I have far, far less booby traps and warning signs than may be thought. Of course, I had some around my residences or where I was sleeping, but my strategy was funneling, not a generalized defense. It's the reason I encourage tramps and squatters and biker gangs to use my property. Interference. Highly reactive and violent interference. I'm not totally hands-off. I punish the ones who touch my stuff and reward the ones who respect my buildings. You don't have to teach a lesson more than once. Respect is a two-way street. Consider it. A man seeking me is led into a trap or a brick wall. I remain safe and sound. You can't defend everything. You just need to be strong where men seek to harm you. They hadn't moved out of their safe house, the one where they kept me for a month while I recovered from the voodoo statue. They couldn't. Not really. It was too well developed not to use. Who would buy it? Who would accept a sales call about a quasi-secret cave system? Who do you think buys those missile silos you see articles about? No one interested in the aesthetic. No one wants to draw attention to their little hidey holes. I was hiding behind a bush, deep in. I was one with the beetles and the possums. I was a thing of the earth. I was invisible. I was a jaguar in the mists. A jaguar with a Tommy gun. The front entrance was blocked from sight by a cage with a beast inside it. Grigory had played his hand, but he didn't trust the thing where his family slept. At least he hasn't totally lost his mind. It took a while, staring through the gloom, eyes stinging from swinging searchlights, for me to see what it was. A questing beast. The beast Glatisant. The questing beast is a chimera. I do not mean a child of Echidna, though it may have been originally. My lore on it is relatively weak. Some things are creatures of myth. Some creatures are hidden even from me. I know the paranormal Pinkerton, Keith Rober, killed one to save my mother, though he died in the attempt. I can't say I know any other modern accounts. The serpent head could live without the body. That's what he discovered. Yes, the body of a leopard, the legs of a stag, and the haunches of a lion. There are myths about big cats with serpent heads over much of the Western world and its ancestors. They died off during King Arthur's day. I assume they were slain to a beast, below population replacement anyway. Who knows what havoc that caused on the Outreterre ecosystem? If I cared. The clones, though. I couldn't tell you where someone got the flesh, the DNA of such a beast. But they did. I assumed there was more than one when Mom told me the story of how she was delivered from danger. It was something that puzzled me, but there just wasn't enough information to go on. Was it a Grand Mason trick of some kind? An alliance between them and some faction of Wickham Hall and Winters? Or Santo? Or Santo did make homunculi after all? Or it could be some random alchemist, or a mad scientist with more white matter in his head than wisdom in Socrates. Well, I'll find a barcode when I tear out its guts. I decided to force the issue. I threw a rock at its cage. The serpent mouth opened and barked. It barked and barked and barked. It was like a French poodle put on a ribeye dress and strutted down a pit bull's kill shelter halls. 100 lungs weren't enough to justify the noise that this thing was making. Its tongue was a serpent's. Its throat was a serpent. I clutched my head. Grigory and a few of his relatives, sons or nephews, ran out, armed to the teeth. A few of them turned back into their refuge. 3 set about calming the beast, hauling meat from somewhere just inside the caves. Only Grigory did nothing. Instead, he stood in front of the cage, tapping a gun against his thigh with his remaining hand. He had revealed himself. His daughter joined him. I winced. She was not looking good. One side of her face was a mass of purple glowing veins. Her eye, the basilisk eye, shone with a sort of hellfire. Too hungry, too ugly, to do anything but hate. She was being eaten by it. She wore her Puritan Wednesday Addams dress. Its belt held holsters and repository of powders and vials. She took a pinch from one and sniffed. The veins crossing her face glowed like a cyberpunk server wire. Her body tensed, and her head twisted as if she heard something. She turned to face me. I ran for it. I didn't want a gun battle so close to their little fortress. Grigory was a careful man. They probably had 1,000 little holes and traps set to kill any intruder, no matter how ferocious he was. Never the plan. Secrecy no longer mattered. I had to draw Grigory out into the woods, too far to run back. Surely there were bounties he could claim. If only he could take my head. The barking got worse. The questing beast had been set loose. I ran on. The barking was aimed at me. It assaulted me with sound and fury. But that part was harmless. I hadn't seen a scorpion tail, but I didn't plan on risking it getting close. Grigory had to be too far away from his hidey hole for him to win a foot race to the entrance. I kept going. The wind was at my back. I could taste the most confusing smell I ever have had the misfortune of experiencing. A wet cat that rolled in corpses and cavorted sinfully with reptiles was coming after me. I didn't think it would be this bad. No wonder King Pellinor wanted to kill it. I heard the snapping of twigs and the scraping of trees get louder. I would have to turn now, or be pounced on. I unholstered the shotgun loaded with buckshot. The questing beast jumped as it saw me face it. It saw me move and reacted appropriately. Its instincts, the cutting edge. A difficult quarry indeed, but a move that could dodge a planted spear was not one that could dodge buckshot. We were both moving. I had turned. It had jumped. I had a tough shot to make, but I did it. Well, not well. The buckshot scored the lion haunches. The blood hissed as it hit the ground. I'm not surprised it burned hot. The amount of calories that this thing must use up just living must have been insane. It landed heavily. In a moment it had bounded away and behind a tree. It was graceful. Its separate parts moved as one. It moved fast as lightning. I was surprised I had run as long as I had. The stag parts touched off the ground, trunks, branches, until it was in the trees. The serpent's head led the body, power, agility, and grace in a single package. My second round of buckshot tore a chunk out of the tree. The serpent head was not looking at me. The third snapped a branch it was landing on. I pulled out the Tommy gun. Gravity is an easy trajectory. I stitched it as it fell. It writhed in the air, trying to dodge my gunfire. It bled red blood, always satisfying, a mark of mortality. The barking turned into screaming and coughing, but it still breathed. As soon as the stag hooves touched, it slid under my bullets and leaped into the nearest bushes. I dropped the extended drum magazine and loaded the next one. I was in it for the long haul. I backed away. I was bent low, moving fingertips and boot toes. My ears ceased ringing from the Chicago typewriter, and I could hear the barking again. It was in front of me, but the pitches changed, getting higher, less deep. There was a trap here, somewhere. I moved to my left and put a tree between me and the barking, which was getting closer, slowly, surely. There were trees in the way, or I would attempt a blind fire. The Thompson is good at pointing a direction and getting lucky. The goal was to kill it. I wasn't worried about the mess. See, when an animal charges at you, and you can't destroy its heart or brain, guaranteed, in the time of the charge, a wall of lead is an invaluable defense. This thing had taken a few bullets, but its mass wasn't that great. This wasn't a T-Rex. It was something that had the body of a big cat and the neck of a boa constrictor. Though, thinking about it, getting a heart shot might be as good as a brain shot. Holding a heart that has to pump veins that feed a body longer than 3 of me can't be a losing strategy. I heard the barking on one side and the snap of a twig on another. It was too late. The body bull rushed me, knocking me down. If it had had the claws of a cat, I might have died then and there, torn to shreds, dead to rights. Instead, it had to stomp me to death. One of the hooves crushed my midriff, and I bit my tongue. I didn't dare cut it open. A few splashes of blood landed on my face, and it burned. This thing was running hot. I rolled out from under it, clutching my bruised guts. I had the 1911 out, and I fired, catching the haunches with 2 good shots. The barks turned to yipes, and the body leaped forward. The head struck, even as the body hightailed it. It had only moved forward, to give its head more room. I missed my shots. I kicked, knocking the mouth aside just far enough for the monster to tangle in the bushes. I got back to my feet. The head had retreated as soon as it knew it had missed. I wasn't in a position to punish it. I backed away. I wanted it to come at me, not retreat. I picked up my Tommy gun and checked the drum mag. Still tight. I waited to triangulate the barking. There was a timer. Grigory would come soon. I didn't know how well this thing was trained, but I didn't doubt it was after me, not Grigory's relatives. I pulled out a flashbang and threw it at the barking. I put my back against a tree. The flash was visible behind my eyelids, even with my back to the tree. The barking turned strange, frantic. I saw the snake, its yellow eyes glowing strangely in the afterglow. The head was rising to the sky, waving like a car dealer's advertising tube sock. I saw the body struggle to stay upright. I chose the larger target. Under the pressure and heat, each puncture was a fountain, a geyser of blood that splashed around me, burning the foliage with heat like boiling water. The Thompson clicked empty even as lines of blood hit me. I shouted in shock. The blood had gone right through my layers. I stopped my shirt from clinging onto my chest and pulled out a water bottle. I poured it all over my front until the burning stopped. I gasped with pain. I became aware of my mission once the pain left. My shotgun was held on by a strap. I cracked it and loaded in slugs. I wanted to do more than scratch it. The body of the questing beast was hidden in a cloud of bloody steam. I saw the outline of the body and started firing. One slug at the base of the next near the joints of its front legs. Every spot I could see hiding a valuable organ I perforated. It twitched with the first 3 slugs, but then it barely reacted to the 4th, the 5th, the 6th. It didn't even squirt blood. I almost went, I did it. I almost got to my knees to praise God for an evil beast slain, and then I remembered what had killed Keith when he had saved my mother, the disembodied head. I backed away. I couldn't see enough of the body to tell if the neck was connected or not. Did it have to stay connected, or was it a matter of two systems, one reptile, one chimera, that worked in tandem but didn't need each other? The barking had been silenced. Maybe it was dead. I could see flashlights going between the trees. It wasn't like I was being stealthy anymore, but I didn't relish killing my fellow men. I reloaded the shotgun then. I pulled out a grenade after. Easy way to check if the head was still living. I tossed it towards the beast's neck, most of its length hidden by steam and body. I slipped behind the trunk of a near tree, barely wide enough to hide me from the shrapnel. The questing beast was rearing to strike. More instinct than strategy, I thrust my shotgun sideways into the beast's maw and twisted to the side. The grenade went off and shrapnel cut into the yellow eye. It let go, silently screaming into the night sky. I emptied round after round of buckshot into the roof of its mouth. The thing fell back, almost too slowly, like a balloon with a slow leak. I put my shotgun back over my shoulder and unholstered the 1911. I couldn't remember my count, so I reloaded. This thing had taken more ammunition to kill than I liked. I could hear Grigory's wheeze over the sound of my ears ringing. "Come on out, boy. I gotta have some words with you. I have promises to keep, and they all involve you. Make this easy for me and mine. Needs of the many, right? The needs of my kin above the last son of a poor, confused soul, so full of love and sacrifice that she threw herself into hell rather than let her son live his life. And for what? Nothing. Nothing at all. Come out, Jack and Morrow. Come out and join your mother."
Pinkerton's Ghosts is a podcast distributed by Superversive Radio, licensed under an attribution non-commercial, share-alike international license. This episode was written by Ben Wheeler and is performed by the same. Ben Wheeler edits, directs, produces, and herds cats. Kid Dickerson performs our audio editing. Visit us on Facebook, read articles on superversivesf.com, or listen to us on unauthorized Acast, iTunes, or Spotify. Contact us through Twitter at @PinkertonsGhosts, email us at pinkertonsghosts@gmail.com, or send us noble messenger possums with messages strapped to their backs. Don't worry, they know how to find us. Thank you for listening, and good luck.